to 116 cases. And remember, those are only the cases that are having PCR tests. Those don't even include all of the home tests that people are doing now. So we really haven't turned the corner yet of seeing our caseload go down. Unfortunately, I learned today that the Jesmond has 5 new cases that were actually rapid tests. So I'm waiting for all those PCR tests to come in. They should be coming in by tomorrow. The good news is that the school this week only has, right now, there was just 1 active case this week, but 3 new cases were found today from the pool testing that was done on Tuesday. There's a lot of news now for the school. I don't know if everybody saw the governor yesterday, and there was a special meeting today with DESE about the changes that the schools are going to be making as far as testing goes. And beginning the week of January 31st, there will be no more test and stay programs if you opt in for the new program. Rather, there will be pool testing once a week at the school, and then there will be home testing once a week obviously on a different day than the pool testing. And then it will be up to the parents to let the school know if they have a positive case in one of the students. So that just, like I said, that's brand new. It just came out yesterday. That was a big meeting today. And I know our school is on board with it because they were all part of the meeting today and we met about it this week. The vaccine data that we have, unfortunately, the vaccine data, the new weekly data comes out tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. So our updated statistics are all now on our webpage for the town of Nahant under COVID. So we still, we're doing good. I don't, I posted it last week. I don't know what the numbers are for this week because, like I said, it doesn't come out until tomorrow. And then we'll update the website once a week. There it is. That's our latest. Thanks, Tony. But again, a lot happens in a week. And so it's important to know right now for people that are close contacts in their quarantine status. So if you had somebody that was positive in your household and you were fully vaccinated with no symptoms, you didn't have to quarantine. However, DPH has changed the guidance now, so you're no longer considered fully vaccinated. You're considered up to date if you have had a booster. So if you're in the age group where you are eligible for a booster and it's been over 5 months since you were fully vaccinated, you are not considered up to date unless you've had the booster. So what that means is if somebody in your house is positive and you're asymptomatic, but you have had your booster, you don't have to quarantine. However, if you haven't had your booster, you do have to quarantine. So that's also new guidance that came out this week. As far as our test data, that does come in on Wednesdays. And so we updated it tonight. It was updated on the website. So we had 606 tests done between January 2nd and January 15th. And out of that, we had 89 positive. So that again is the PCR test. So we're still pretty busy. I think that's about all I have to report.
We've we've added on the website as well as updating our positive case numbers and our booster information. We've been keeping up with providing new resources that come available. For instance, the testing kits that you can order from the federal government, you can click this link right here, free at-home COVID-19 test. Also on the website is our COVID. So since our last meeting, we've put the mask mandate into place. We have a flyer here available for our local businesses that they can, download and print. And we also have our actual order available for them as well. Here's your resources for scheduling vaccines. Here are your resources for scheduling testing. And beyond, and these are really like your most local convenient options. The next area here is if you can't find any appointments, go down to if you're looking for a vaccine, go to vaxfinder.mass.gov. And if you're looking for testing, go to mass.gov testing locations. That'll bring up even more options that are out there for you. And then as you continue to scroll down, these are just recent news stories that have been published regarding COVID-19. The most recent one is the Baker Polito administration tool for digital vaccine cards. We obviously encourage residents to take advantage of that. While there isn't any vaccine mandate in Nahant, there is one in Salem. There is one in Boston. It's becoming more popular, and having that digital ID vaccine card will be helpful for you because not everybody brings their actual vaccine card with them everywhere they go. So we're looking at this booster data and speaking with Deb. Obviously, we're going to have new numbers tomorrow, but this age range between 16 and 64, we obviously want to see that climb. There's no telling if everybody in that age range is 5 months away from their last dose, which you have to be in order to get boosted. So it may not mean that the difference is eligible, but we'd like to we talked about maybe putting out some new press release or targeted outreach for that age group about the importance of getting boosted and where they can find appointments for that.
Tony, two questions if I could. One, what if we drop those flyers off to the local businesses?
We did.
Just so we know they have them in hand.
Our health agent, John Coulon, actually delivered multiple copies of those posters and a copy of the actual order to each of those places.
Excellent. The other question is, we had talked about ordering test kits. Will we continue on with that now that we've got the opportunity for people to get them from the government?
Yeah, so we have our order in. I think that, we probably don't need to order as many because of these alternative resources that are free and available. But our order is already in. Now, all the manufacturers are struggling to fill these orders because the demand for these tests is just so high.
Yeah.
Additionally to the federal government option, the school, Deb, jump in here if I get this wrong, but my understanding is that the school now will be receiving a test for every student and every teacher every week that they can take home.
Right. So all of the families that opt in for this new program that I was talking about will be getting enough home tests to continue. This is going to go from January 31st until April 22nd. So they will receive on a weekly basis enough tests so that they can continue to test their students 1 time a week. And that will apply to the teachers as well.
That's great.
So they were talking today at the meeting that they're gonna start shipping all of these home tests out the week of the 24th, so that all the schools will be ready to go live on the 31st.
Well, certainly not a lot of good news on the counts. Is that 89 number, is that currently
Yeah.
active? Yeah.
Yes,
And
that's the last 2 weeks, right? Just the last 2 weeks. Although, I mean, on a happier note, I think the last time we reported, we had 106 active. So I guess you could say we are starting to come down a little bit, except that today it was just unbelievable how many, like I said, you log on in the morning and you have a couple of, but they just streamed in all day long. And they've created new reports now for us because a lot of the municipalities can't keep up with the numbers, as far as calling people and doing the contact tracing. So we do have a report now for 0 to 18-year-olds because the focus is on school-aged and college-aged students so that we can keep them in the school. But our cases, they span the age groups. I mean, today we had probably somebody in every age group that we have on our site. So, but and then the other thing is too, a lot of these people that I'm calling, this is their second time having COVID. They had it last year, and now they're fully vaccinated with boosters. And, some of them aren't that, not everybody was as pleasant as Jean was. But we're starting to get some angry callers on our.
I can only imagine after.
You can't really. One man today was, well, I won't go into it, but so people aren't, I think everybody's pretty, a lot of people have it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And they don't want to hear it anymore. They don't want to stay in the house. Although they're less sick because they have had the vaccines and the boosters, which is, I'm seeing that a lot, very few hospitalizations, but so
I know the less friendly folks on the other side of the phone, probably stand out more in your mind, but I get nothing but compliments about you and Kristen and Anna and Cheryl and Tony Parentazzi talks about it too. And you guys are doing an amazing job. So, we thank you.
And they're few and far between. I will say, most of the people are very, very agreeable, but you know how it is. So hopefully, in a couple of months, I won't even be on this agenda anymore. Maybe it'll just peter out.
Hope so. I mean, I'm guessing that the numbers are actually missing quite a few people that probably take home, feel sick, take a home test and never really get into the database.
Right. And that's going to increase too, Josh, because as more of these home tests become available to everybody, people aren't going to be looking for the PCR test sites. Number one, their appointments take a while to get now. And they're also saying if you don't need to follow up anymore with a PCR if you test positive on these antigen tests. So we'll see what happens to all of the test sites going forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the update. John, I don't know if you had anything to add, John Coulon? You're muted. Bet we're missing some good stuff here.
Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. So see if it was picked up. I was going to remind folks that we still have 3 testing sites in Lynn. And while some sites do not take appointments for a period of time when they're all booked, you can still get appointments. And although one site does take walk-ins, I do not recommend standing in line in the cold. Yeah, you make an appointment and you walk up, and in line with what Deb has been talking about earlier today, I was asked once again, just when is this going to end? And of course, we don't know. We have to do what we can. And that led, though, to a decent discussion about some of the science behind the decisions that are being made. So I do enjoy having these kinds of conversations with folks when people are willing to ask questions about the specifics of what we are doing. And I get from people that they do trust that what we are trying to do is in everyone's best interest. So I've appreciated that, getting that from folks. Otherwise, I have nothing to add.
All right, thanks for that, John. If there's no more COVID updates, then we'll move on to opening comments.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I know that this is a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, and the Housing Authority. Dan, should the Housing Authority, I see most of the members are on, should they open their meeting now? Wait until we get to them on the agenda.
Yeah, there's no reason not to do it now, so they should just do it now, get it over with, and then they can close out with them.
Okay, I am Mickey Long, Chair of the Nahant Housing Authority. I see we have a quorum with Susan Bonner present and Dave Wilson, as well as Kelly Collins, who's the Nahant Housing Executive Director. So our meeting is hereby ongoing.
Thanks, Mickey. And thanks for joining us, everybody. And Tony, I know that we have Jeff Blake on to talk about East Point, and after opening comments, I think you are considering to moving that out of order to get an update there. And we possibly could move the Housing Authority out of order if that's possible after Jeff speaks.
Sure, we'll do that, Mark. So we'll do opening comments and then hear from Jeff Blake on the status of East Point, and then switch over to the Housing Authority. That sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Before we get going with the opening comment announcements, I just want to take a moment for all of us to remember Ellen Steves. Ellen passed away a couple days ago at age 72. She lived in Nahant, I think, her whole life. She loved Nahant. She served Nahant much in the pattern of her parents. She served for many years on CONCOM and on the Community Preservation Committee, and as well as many other behind the scenes activities and contributions to our town. In a cookie cutter world, Ellen was truly a unique individual, which I, for one, really appreciate. She marched to a different drummer, or in her case, sort of ambled to a different drummer. In addition to her devotion to Nahant, she was a devoted daughter, regularly getting Harriet out well into her 90s and completely blind out for sales on their townie. And whenever you saw that red and white striped townie sale, you knew Ellen was out there enjoying her time in the water. So I just want to remember Ellen and thank her for everything she's done for the town, and it was a privilege to know her.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Well said.
Okay, so with that, the winter parking ban is in effect until March 20th, 2022. All vehicles must be parked off the street from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. The Nahant DPW is seeking snowplow drivers. Contact Mary Lowe at mlowe@nahant.org or at 781-581-0026. The Council on Aging Board has a vacancy. There's an open seat on the council. Visit nahant.org for a full description of the board's mission and duties. If interested, send letters of interest to ktaylor@nahant.org. I guess that's it for opening comments. Mr. Cullinan or Mr. Canty, do you have any additional?
Just again, want to thank the everybody in town who helped us through this last storm. Police, fire, and DPW all did a great job and seemed to be on top of it during the whole storm. So great job, Tony, and please pass my pass along job well done.
I'll second that.
Anything else, Gene?
No, that's it.
All right, with that, we're gonna go a bit out of order here. We've asked Jeff Blake, our town council, to give us an update on preserving East Point. There's a few different legal proceedings ongoing, and Jeff has another meeting he's got to jump on to quickly. So we're gonna go out of order and hear from Jeff Blake now on the status of preserving East Point and in the legal proceedings related to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a Happy New Year to everyone. I haven't seen everyone in quite a while. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. So as you pointed out, I do have somewhere else to go, but I've got plenty of time. One of the things that I want to mention right up front is we've got litigation. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cases out there right now. They are all in active litigation. I'll give this update to everybody just to kind of let everybody know where we are in the process. But I would rather not discuss litigation strategy or the like for obvious reasons. But I'll jump right into it, and I'm going to try to go somewhat in chronological order. As you may recall, in the very beginning, back in 2019, I believe it was, NPT, the Nahant Preservation Trust, and 27 citizens sued Northeastern University, claiming that they had dedicated those portions of East Point to the public use as a wildlife preserve and for passive recreation of its property on top of and east of the bunker. As a result, they have created a easement, if you will, or conservation restriction over the land, and the land is protected by Article 97 and could not be developed. Northeastern University, at about the same time, filed an action in land court wanting a declaratory judgment, which is essentially a court saying these are the rights of the parties. They're requesting a declaratory judgment that they had not, in fact, dedicated it to the public use, and that essentially we were wrong. One of the cases from NPT was brought in the Superior Court. The other one from Northeastern was brought in the land court. After some motion practice back and forth, NPT prevailed and claimed that it was an issue of fact for a jury to decide. Land courts do not have juries, so the courts consolidated both of those claims in the Essex Superior Court. Currently, discovery has concluded, and for those that don't know, discovery is essentially each side getting to ask the other side for documents, answers to questions, and depositions. We have deposed and we have completed discovery. Also, I guess I'm leaving out an important part of the NPT versus and 27 citizens versus Northeastern in the Superior Court. The town ultimately joined that proceeding and added an additional claim that the town relied on, called promissory estoppel, relied on claims that Northeastern continued maintenance of its property as a wildlife preserve and for passive recreation when it dedicated and renovated the Lodge Park. So we have also made a claim of promissory estoppel that because we believed that that Northeastern had dedicated this, we took actions to our detriment now based on that reliance. Again, all of these 2 cases and all the various issues in those cases are now lumped in together. Discovery has closed. There's no more depositions. There's no more transfer or exchange of documents or answers to interrogatory, answers to questions. And we are now at what is known as a dispositive motion stage. And a dispositive motion is just that. It is, we file a motion based on the evidence that we have gathered that says, no matter, based on these undisputed facts, we win as a matter of law. And the other side says the same thing. Northeastern has actually served us with what is known as a summary judgment. That's the dispositive motion on both NPT and the town of Nahant. Opposition to this summary judgment motion is due early in February, and a hearing will be scheduled thereafter. In the event that the summary judgment motions are granted, the case is done, at least at the Superior Court level. Either side could appeal to an appeals court. But in the event that that a court does not grant summary judgment, and one of the reasons for not granting summary judgment may be that, as I said before, we're going to say that the undisputed facts show that as a matter of law, we win. The other side may say, wait a minute, we dispute that critical fact. And without that critical fact, town, you can't win. And vice versa, town saying that about Northeastern University. So to the extent that there are any issues of material fact that are outstanding, then a court would deny the motion for summary judgment and would be off to a jury trial in this case. And the trial date is set for October 31st, 2022. So as it stands right now, we are in the process of drafting our opposition, and it will be a cross motion most likely for summary judgment and serve it on the other side in February. The way these things typically go, we will serve it pursuant to the Superior Court rules early February. The court the other side will file it with the court. I suspect that we would probably see a summary judgment hearing sometime in March, hopefully early March. And then once that summary judgment has been heard by a court, they will take it under advisement. And this is this can be a pretty complicated case in some respects, certainly with the facts. So a court may take some additional time, and that could be anywhere from 2 to 6 months. So, I anticipate getting some type of decision out of a court on the summary judgment, probably sometime in the summer. So that was the first round of cases. The next, there is this, as we all know, there's the taking by eminent domain under Chapter 80A by the town. But rather than me going into that one, I'm just going to jump over the other ones and I'll come back to this. As a lot of you may know out there, Northeastern, even though we served them with a complaint and an intention to take notice of intention to take, they've continued to move forward and permitting the number one, the 55,000 square foot building on top of the Murphy bunker, and number two, a seawater intake expansion project that they had going. What they needed to do to permit that was they needed to come to our Conservation Commission. And our Conservation Commission held multiple hearings on both of those. It's called a notice of intent. You come to the Conservation Commission with essentially saying, I want to do this project. Conservation Commission looks at it and says, oh, okay, you can do it, but we're going to condition it this way, or no, you can't, or please give us more information and we'll make a determination. Well, they filed their notices of intent on both projects, the seawater intake expansion and the 55 square foot building on top of the bunker. There were certain areas of that project that were within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. Remember that the Conservation Commission doesn't have jurisdiction over any building in town. It has to be within one of our resource areas or a buffer to that resource area. And we have a couple of different resource areas that even the 55,000 square foot building on top of the bunker implicated. So we went to hearings. The applicant, let me backtrack a little bit. Under this Conservation Commission, it gets a little complicated and maybe a little confusing. We have what is known as the Wetland Protection Act, and that is a state law. The Wetland Protection Act protects certain areas, resource areas. Municipalities are authorized to adopt their own wetland protection bylaws, not the Wetland Protection Act, but bylaw. And within that bylaw, they can be more stringent than the act, meaning they can protect additional areas. For example, 100-foot buffer zone to a resource area. So when an applicant files a notice of intent for, excuse me, when an applicant files a notice of intent for doing a project that implicates both, they have to get two decisions. They have to get one under the Wetland Protection Act, and they have to get one under the Wetland Protection Bylaw. So with respect to Northeastern, the Conservation Commission heard and decided under the Wetland Protection Act that they met the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act and granted that part of the notice of intent. However, with respect to the Wetland Protection Bylaw, our own town bylaw, Northeastern did not provide them with the necessary assurances, nor did they address some of the concerns and criteria that we had in our Wetland Protection Bylaw. So we denied it under the Wetland Protection Bylaw, both projects. So as a result, the matter now will go to the Superior Court. An appeal of a denial under the Wetland Protection Bylaw goes to a Superior Court under what is known as a record review. And under that standard, a municipality or a deciding board or commission has 90 days to assemble the record. And the record is what was before the commission or a board, in this case, the Conservation Commission, during its decision. We literally will put together a record appendix, which will have every document that was ever produced in that during those hearings and during the notice of intent. We will put it together. You know, now it's electronic. We used to actually bind them. It would be a book. It would be a record appendix. And based on that record, each party will then make its arguments through what is known as a motion for judgment on the pleadings. The way this works is the town, the commission, files its record of appendix within 90 days from the date of the appeal. Then the appellant, the person appealing, in this case Northeastern, has 30 days to draft a motion for judgment on the pleadings and serve it on the town, saying that we think we win because X, Y, and Z. The town then has 30 days to oppose that motion and cross move and say, we think you're wrong and we think we're right and here's why. And then we file it with the court. The court typically will hold a hearing and we'll take it under advisement. We haven't even, and I believe the record is due sometime soon. We haven't even assembled and filed a record in either of those matters yet. But to add a little bit more complication, and I think some of you may know this, a new notice of intent was filed for the seawater intake expansion project about a month and a half ago. The commission held a hearing. The commission under the regulations has 21 days to hold a hearing. And if the applicant allows for a continuance, we can continue it. But once the hearing closes, we have 21 days to make our decision. Well, under the new application for the seawater intake expansion project, which took some of a lot of the project out of the resource area, we held a new hearing and we asked Northeastern to provide us with additional information at that hearing. We also asked Northeastern to give us a brief continuance so that we could, number one, get the new information and do an inspection of the site. Northeastern said no. They denied our request for a continuance, which they can do. So the commission promptly denied their application for lack of information that they wanted. That case, as far as I know, has not been appealed. And I believe the appeal period is very close to running, although I have not seen the Conservation Commission's denial yet. But in any event, that kind of hangs out there. And I know some of you will be saying, well, wait a minute, how can they have two projects? So they got an appeal of this, and then they got another application. They can do it. Unfortunately, they can do it. But in any event, here we sit with the Conservation Commission's denials under appeal, at least for two of the beginning ones. And I likely anticipate a third one. Just so that you know, in order for any building to go forward, these appeals need to be resolved. They do implicate some of the areas for the project, and they need to be resolved before building permits could be issued. The next one is, as some of you may know, in order for this project to go forward, even for a educational and religious use, educational and religious uses are exempt from zoning under the so-called Dover Amendment that we all know. However, in limited circumstances, we can apply our zoning bylaw. Building heights, setbacks, parking, and the like, reasonable regulations. And our zoning bylaw in it has a section which is called Site Plan Review for Educational and Religious Uses. The Site Plan Review for Educational and Religious Uses is an abbreviated site plan, but it's a site plan nonetheless. And under our zoning bylaw, no building permit shall issue until site plan review has been approved by the planning board. The planning board held numerous hearings on Northeastern's application for site plan review. The planning board requested multiple times documentation that the use was in fact an educational use. Northeastern's response to that is, we're a university, of course it's an educational use. Well, that's not really what we were asking, number one, and there are plenty of uses that universities make of properties that are commercial and frankly not educational. So be that as it may, there were additional requirements that we had asked for and information that we asked for, and we were not given it. So ultimately, the planning board denied Northeastern site plan and did so on, number one, insufficient insufficient documentation that we had asked for. Number two, an interesting issue wherein our bylaw, and I just told you that even under Dover, you can limit things like building height. Northeastern's taking the position that they are only building a building that is, I think it's 20 feet high or less, because they're measuring from the top of the bunker from where they're building. Well, in fact, the bunker is a structure. And our interpretation is that you measure at the bottom of the bunker, or at least ground level of the bunker up, not from the top up, like you would for a two-story, right? If you had a single family dwelling that it was only one story and you built on the top, you would measure the building height from the bottom of the first story, not from the top of the first story up. So that was another a basis for their denial. And of course, they've also interpreted their bylaw, our zoning bylaw, specifically the Natural Resource District zoning bylaw, as not allowing any of the type of development in the district that they are trying to. And there are some cases out there, at least one Burlington case, Seventh-day Adventist versus Burlington, wherein a court said that Dover does not apply to those type of bylaws that are out there to protect the natural environment and the like. For example, a wetland protection bylaw. So those are the three bases for the planning board's denial. Now, that case is relatively new, at least the appeal. Discovery is set to begin shortly. In fact, we are drafting discovery requests as we speak. The way these things go is before a court is what is known as a de novo hearing, which means, unfortunately, that the applicant can bring in information that wasn't even provided to the board. But that's just the way it goes. Typically, applicants don't do that. And if there is significant amounts of information that is provided during the appeal that was not provided to a board, courts are often reluctant to just issue the permit, and rather they remand it back to the board and say, hey, board, take a look at what we got here, make your determination based on that. So again, the discovery for these things goes on. I think it's on a fast track. So we're looking at about 180 days of discovery. That's give or take COVID. Parties can extend the discovery if they want to, based on circumstances, and courts can do it. Once the discovery is done, I suspect that, again, we would evaluate whether or not a dispositive motion is appropriate. And if it is, we would draft our dispositive motions. The other side would do the same, and we would go to the court, and the court would make its determination based on those motions. If they're denied, then we go to a trial. Unlike the trial, the upper two cases that I talked about for you at the beginning, this is a zoning appeal. There is no right to a jury in this, so it would be a judge trial. Likely we would get a little quicker trial, especially in the age of COVID. The trial courts have suspended all jury trials for now. So if this being a judge trial, we would likely get probably a quicker determination. But again, we're looking at probably, well into next fall and maybe winter and spring on something like this. These cases, a year and a half may sound like a long time, but that's pretty fast for the legal system to go. And of course, the last one that we're probably all familiar with is the Chapter 80A intention to take. As everybody knows, we filed a notice of intention to take. We filed a complaint against Northeastern University. Northeastern has answered that complaint, and motion practice and back and forth has already started. In fact, there was a status conference, a litigation control conference today. I sat in, it was a Zoom conference. I sat in and listened. What's currently going on right now is the parties are attempting to figure out a schedule, discovery and the like schedule for how to best go forward with this case. And the reason being is under the statute 88, and I think it's section 7, it seems to contemplate if there is a challenge to the validity of the taking. So when you have a taking, typically what you have is you have the two V's, right? You have the validity of the taking. Was it for a public purpose? If the answer to that is yes, you go on to the next one. Valuation. Was the value that the town or the taking authority offered to the property owner sufficient? So here, not surprisingly, usually in eminent domain cases, we rarely have challenges to validity, rarely. But not surprisingly here, Northeastern is challenging the validity, claiming that the town has taken the property in bad faith merely to stop a project, to stop their project. Based on that challenge, the court is now going to, and I think all parties agree, I think by statute they should, it's going to bifurcate the case. We're going to have two cases going forward, right? The first one that we're going to do, we're going to have discovery on whether or not the taking was valid. And ultimately, the parties, at least today, back and forth with the judge, believe that after some brief discovery, possibly a few depositions, that the issue should be ripe for a dispositive motion. The dispositive motion will be filed on both sides. We win because of X, Y, and Z in the facts, and they're going to say we win because of X, A, B, C facts. The court will make its decision. If the court says it's a valid public purpose, a valid taking, then we go on to the next, the valuation part of it, which, and I've gotten up here many times, and so has Jim Masterman, and talked about how the value goes with the three panel commissioners, three commissioners that determine a value. The town has the option of backing out if after that determination they believe that the value is too high. There is ultimately an appeal to a superior court jury. and the like. But so for purposes of this conversation, if the bifurcation, if we win on the validity of the taking, we win to go to the valuation. If we lose, we lose, and it's over. There is no taking because it was invalid. But at this point, the litigation is very new, and we haven't even gotten to the point where we are putting together a schedule for the discovery on the validity of the taking aspect of it. We did hash out today, I sat in as a fly on the wall with Jim Masterman, our eminent domain attorney, and their attorney, George McLaughlin. And it looks like the parties are scheduled to come back on February 2nd at 2 p.m. to come up with a discovery schedule for the bifurcated trial, for the bifurcation, the validity part of it, and a motion schedule, meaning when the dispositive motions must be filed. So again, not a ton going on there, but it's going on, and it will heat up quick. Once we come up with that discovery schedule, at least for the validity issue, it's going to be condensed and it's going to be pretty fast. Some of the schedules that I've seen, and we're looking out over a few months, not a year or something to that effect. Now, once the validity is decided, it probably becomes a little bit more complicated and perhaps more discovery intense. So there may be a longer wait there, but we're taking it one step at a time. And I think that's all the cases I got for you.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Jeff. Really appreciate the thorough explanation. I think certainly there's a lot of people in town interested in the status of those, so I wanted to have you as our expert come in and explain all this stuff, so appreciate it.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Is that a preview to law school? Was that like our introduction to a?
Yeah, that's how the professors get up and talk. On and on and on, right?
That's a lot. You covered a lot there, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a there was a lot to cover, and I know that everybody, we got 25 people sitting on 24 without me, and I know it's just it's really hard to take in, but I hesitate to take a lot of questions if you wanted to even ask them, because it is in litigation, and anything that we say is a public record, and I would just rather not give the other side any inkling of where we're going.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Jeff. I think your explanations were very thorough, and so considering your opinion about the ongoing litigation and your prior commitment, I think we can probably move on.
All right, it was a pleasure seeing you guys again, and obviously when something comes up, we'll update you.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you.
All right, see you guys.
Take care.
Okay. Let's get into our meeting with the Housing Authority right now. First of all, thank you guys on the Housing Authority for coming, and you, Kelly Collins, we haven't met yet, but really appreciate you being on the call today. We hear a lot of good things about what you're doing in Nahant, so thanks for being here. So I think generally the intent here is to keep the Housing Authority appraised of some of the things we've begun to work on with regards to housing in town, most notably generating a housing production plan, which is something every community should have. And with that, Mark Cullinan has sort of taken this project on as lead. So with that, maybe you can take it from here, Mark.
Yeah, I'll try to open it up a little. I'll turn it over to Tony because he's doing a lot of the work behind the scenes. As you said, we've been talking, the board has been talking about trying to address our housing needs, and we have many of them, I think, in town. And what the best way of going about that would be. When I say housing needs, I'm talking about affordability, I'm talking about senior housing, I'm talking about parcels that could be subject to either a friendly 40B development or unfriendly 40B development. Probably talking about some zoning issues that are related to how you would approach a housing production plan in Nahant. And so, you know, as we were discussing this, I obviously thought, well, the housing needs to have some input in this, and as perhaps maybe even the planning board, but the housing authority for sure, in terms of what they're doing, in terms of affordability, in terms of senior housing, what they see the needs are, and how they could provide some input into this housing production plan. I don't know if that summarizes it, Tony, but you've been working with some consultants on this. Maybe you want to get a little bit deeper.
Can I just chime in for 1 second, just for those that don't know? So a 40B development is an affordable housing development, and an unfriendly 40B development. If the town doesn't meet the state goals for affordable housing, then it is subject to the possibility of an unfriendly 40B development, which means it does not need to comply with town zoning laws. So just wanted to explain that. So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Tony.
Hey, Josh, you might also want to let people know what our status is with respect to the percentage of houses or buildings that we need to be in that 10%, and we're only at 3% currently.
Well, I think you just said
I
it.
can get into that if you want.
Sure.
So yes, thank you to the board, and thank you to the Housing Authority and Kelly for joining us. We are very much at the starting line, I would say, on this initiative. Really looking into you know, the 40B and a housing production plan and what our next steps might be. And like Mark had mentioned, you know, bringing you all into the conversation to make sure you're aware of what we're doing, where we are in the process, and really let you take that information back and maybe discuss it amongst yourselves at your next meeting, and, you know, stay in communication about, you know, what type of involvement you might want to have, but certainly no pressure on that. Just want to make sure you guys are in the loop for sure. As Mark mentioned, you know, we certainly have heard from the town residents about the need for senior affordable housing. And we've also been looking into the recent zoning law change at the state level regarding accessory dwelling units, which essentially accessory dwelling, think of it as like an in-law apartment. So our next step was to, you know, communicate with, we actually talked with KP Law about 40B, and our general understanding, I'll get through it at a high level, is that, you know, every town is required to meet a 10% threshold of subsidized housing inventory. Nahant's SHI, subsidized housing inventory, is 3%, and all of it is with the housing authority. So 48 units that you control are our only affordable housing that comply with the law. As Josh had mentioned, Chapter 40B would allow a developer to override local zoning bylaws if we do not meet that 10% threshold, or if we don't have a safe harbor to rely Affordable housing must be in perpetuity through a deed restriction and a regulatory agreement with DHCD. It can be for 80%, 60%, 50% of median income, or even less. Age restrictions are allowed. And there are 3 potential safe harbors that the town can use to, I guess, protect themselves from a unfriendly 40B development. One of those is to meet the 10% housing stock threshold, which, as I mentioned, we only have 3%. The other is to meet the general land area minimum, or otherwise known as the GLAM, threshold of 1.5% of the land area of the municipality dedicated to affordable housing. This excludes undevelopable land such as open space, cemetery, the golf course. We don't know where we are in regards to the GLAM, how much of our property, where we meet that 1.5% currently. And those safe harbors are reviewed by DHCD when we are trying to utilize them if a unfriendly 40B development were to be proposed to the town. So we have to
Is what, Tony?
Department of Housing,
Urban Development. Community Development, Department of Housing.
Community Development. Community Development. Thank you. So our first step really is we want to take a look at where are we with the GLAM, and where do we want to be with our housing is let's develop a housing production plan. So one thing that we're going to be doing this year at town meeting is applying to the CPC for funding to hire a consultant to help us develop that housing production plan. And the first phase of that would be to assess our status in regards to the GLAM. We had a conversation, we had a meeting scheduled for today. It got postponed. Mark and I did with MAPC to see if they could provide us a little bit of assistance as to what that process is in regards to developing such a plan and what the ballpark amount of funds would be required to hire a consultant to do such work. My understanding is it starts pretty much around 30 grand and it grows as, how intense your production plan might become. Larger towns, obviously, the price goes up with the size of your community. As we talked about earlier with the accessory dwelling units, it's possible that those units, if they meet certain requirements, such as a deed restriction and of course affordability, could count towards our SHI, our housing inventory. So we're looking at both that zoning and if we were to include that into zoning in the future, how would that help us meet goals with our 40B requirement? But really step one, as I mentioned, is bringing in a consultant to help guide us, tell us where we are today, and then through public or like a robust public process, understand from the community what our needs are and what our options are. So that's really where we are right now, and we'll be submitting that application to the CPC next week.
Just so folks know, on CPC we have a seat housing. Dave Wilson has been kind enough to take it up and meet with this high intensity committee who meets sometimes before town meeting almost weekly and by twice a week. So one issue I wonder is it the selectmen's desire to create a subcommittee of both committees, the Board of Selectmen or as many committees responsible for planning, housing, and BOS. Is that one initiating thought?
Well, we haven't gotten that far. As I mentioned, we're really, really early in the process, and our first step was, let's see if we can get some funding. But certainly having a subcommittee of those respective, representatives from those respective committees involved as the, to carry us through the housing production plan process. I think that's a great idea. I defer to the selectmen, but, I think that would make sense.
Because the funding issue is going to be up to the CPC, obviously, and housing is one vote of several seats on there. I certainly am supportive of the entire concept you just discussed. And and how long I've been sitting on housing, probably 5 years. I don't recall us taking a vote on a particular position for CPC. I'm not sure where the other commissioners would be on that, but we'll cross that bridge when and if CPC approves, holds meetings on that issue. So good, but whatever you guys decide, whatever it is that we can do to cooperate, certainly I agree that a study is something important given the aging demographic and the affordability issue that folks are experiencing everywhere, including in this town. So I appreciate your effort. I appreciate the invite, and I thank you for it.
Yeah, Mickey, I agree with Tony. I think it would be important, and I would encourage a sort of a collaborative group to work on this. At some point, it's going to have to go before town meeting in the form of adopting the housing production plan, or even perhaps changing some zoning issues around it. So the more of a collaborative approach we make to this, I think the community would be more likely to agree with what we're asking for. So
weren't we in the process of putting together a committee to deal with this?
No, I think you might be thinking of the short-term rental committee.
Yeah.
We've talked about, but we have talked about it. I think Mark brought it up. But, Tony and I met with Amy Questle, who's an attorney at KP Law, and in the approach that Tony just described is exactly what she was recommending. There's plenty of towns that have these production plans, and, she recommended a few different consultants to take a stab at creating that for us. And it doesn't sound like it's too complicated because there are so many communities that have them, communities of our similar size and so on. So to some degree, they can kind of leverage what's already in place. So, but I think, I agree. First thing to do is get the funding so that we can get this thing going, and definitely agree that we should have some collaborative effort across,
So is that committee still coming together? The short-term rental?
Yes, but it's a totally separate issue.
It is.
Short-term rentals are less than 30 days. So it's different than housing.
Airbnb?
Yeah,
Yeah.
separate from housing.
So Airbnbs would be the short-term rental committee.
Right. Okay, thanks.
But
So just for folks to keep in mind, that the select board and Tony's, Kelly Collins is a part-time position. I think it's 20 hours. And we don't have permission from DHCD for any more hours for her, leave alone the resources. Practically everything we do on housing needs permission through some agreements for funding that we've had and for others. So just about everything we do, Kelly needs to check with folks at DHCD, and she's got a good relationship with folks there. So whatever input we have that the town would need from DHCD's approval, my sense is if you keep in mind that she's only part-time and she has to handle what she's already handling. It's not like you could just pick up the phone and send her an email and she can respond that quickly. The other thing, so just to sum up, it's my assumption that first, the Board of Selectmen or the town and Nahant will make an application to CPC. Those of us on housing, the 5 commissioners, should we choose to attend the CPC meetings for input like that, and I hope we would. Once funding, assuming funding is provided by the CPC board, we would wait for the Board of Selectmen or the town to notify housing as to their desire or not for further participation. Is that a good assumption?
Yeah, Tony, let me just jump in for a minute. Maybe you can answer it, Tony, or Dan, whether or not we'd want to put in an article to establish that committee, or whether or not you could just put a committee, advocacy sort of committee together ad hoc on your own. Either way, Dan, Tony could just put a committee together, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually much more controllable that way, because if it goes through town meeting, then only town meeting can really set the mandate and also to determine its lifespan and whatnot.
So it might be better to have the town administrator set up an advisory committee for him.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as timeline goes, Mickey, I would say yes. I would think we hopefully get, a town meeting in May, we get approved, hopefully CPC recommends it, puts it on the warrant for a vote at town meeting. It gets approved, and we're able to then hire a consultant and put together a subcommittee that would work directly with that consultant. I almost envision it similar to like the Green Communities Committee or the MVP Committee or the Open Space Committee, which are basically the town's direct line to the consultant. And they would be, heavily involved in that process and, the setting up public meetings to meet with the consultant and discuss what the issues are in town and that whole process. And I think having a representative of the housing authority, a representative of the planning board, a representative of the selectmen, perhaps some residents or whatever we might want to do. I think that makes all the sense in the world. But yeah, I think step one would be to, get the funding for the plan for the consultant.
And funding will come through CPC vote, FinCom approval, town meeting approval.
Right.
And then we'll put this advisory committee through your office or you'll put this advisory committee through your office and whoever you have to consult with.
Right.
Hey, great, thanks. Sounds interesting and much needed, and appreciate you inviting us to participate very early in the process.
Well, I wanted to say hi to Kelly. I think we've met once or twice down to the beach, perhaps, the husband and kids. But thanks for doing the work that you've been doing. I hear a lot of great things about you, and I'm sorry that we just probably went through a quarter of your weekly hours with tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mark. This is actually extra, but that's okay.
Okay. But I'm sure you'll have a lot of the data and some information that we'll need. So, yeah. However we access that.
Yeah. So can I just ask whether Dave Wilson or Susan Bonner have any questions, comments, or concerns? Dave?
No, I'd be glad to, this is a good step towards finding, like affordable housing and senior housing. As you know, seniors we're getting old and stuff, and some people can't afford houses. So this is a good step in finding, a solution.
Thank you, Dave. Susan Bonner, you still there? I don't hear her. So, okay. So with that, I suspect that it's okay for Nahant Housing to adjourn.
Yeah, that's right, Mickey.
Okay. A motion to adjourn, Dave.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Susan, we often have problems. I'm not so sure she's still here or if she got cut off. Susan, are you there? No. So I wonder whether we have a quorum to adjourn. So I'm going to just close the meeting, and if there's an issue, I'll handle it then. Thanks again, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, all right, good.
Hey, one question I wanted to ask, and I didn't want to interrupt you leaving the meeting, but is there a game plan or a time frame for upgrading some of the properties in town that come under their jurisdiction?
That might be a good,
There is, and Kelly's still on. I don't know if, Kelly, you feel like answering that question, but I know you went before the CPC last year, and later in this meeting, we're going to be providing a little bit of an update on CPC articles that were approved at previous town meetings. But, you know, if you don't mind, if you have a brief answer for Selectman Canty on, you know, maybe those projects.
Yeah, we actually just recently completed 2 siding projects for Spring and Emerald Road, and then from CPC and with funding from DHCD, we are working on a design plan right now for re-siding and new windows for the Greystone property. It's still into the design phase, but then once we get that going, we're hoping to do a joint meeting between DHCD and CPC to get that finalized and hopefully get going in the spring. And then we also have a window project that should be getting started for not just one, but there's a few windows of all of the Spring and Emerald Road properties that need new windows. They're all leaking. So we have that project coming up. Those are our 2 CPC projects at the moment. And then we just completed another major fire alarm project at the Spindrift. We've definitely been busy.
That's great. Thank you for giving us the input.
If you guys have any other questions, feel free. I'll be here for another few minutes.
okay, thanks. We do have an agenda item to review the CPC articles that were approved at the 2021 annual town meeting. And Lynn Spencer is on the Zoom call to give us an update. And if you would like, Lynn, we can move that item out of order as well. It's kind of a nice segue from Kelly. I'll leave it up to you.
No, that's fine.
All right, let's do that then. So Lynn Spencer is the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and will give us.
Mr. Chairman, can I just jump in? I just don't want to be in violation here, but I noticed we have a National Grid public hearing tonight. Is that still on, Tony?
Yes.
That was advertised in the item. Was there a time advertised for that, Dan?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, Lynn. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark. It was probably advertised for the start of this meeting, so we should get it done. If
Sorry, Lynn.
we're already
It's
late.
all right. I'll go back to, what I was doing before, but I'll keep listening. Okay.
Dan, are you comfortable with us getting it? I know we're already late, but. with
Yeah,
us
no,
opening
I'm
this
fine with
hearing
that.
now?
I mean, if we start a little late, that's okay. Just make sure we invite public comment. That's the only thing I would have.
So what would does the Board of Selectmen have to vote to
Open the meeting.
open the hearing?
Yeah, they certainly can. They don't really have to, but they certainly can. There's no problem.
All right, let's do that. Do we have a motion?
I move to open the National Grid public hearing.
Second.
Okay, discussion. We have a representative on the.
Hi, good evening. My name is Adel Wahed Nabat at 170 Medford Street, Malden. And I'm here on behalf of a customer at 116 Willow Road in Nahant. We're petitioning, this is a customer driven job, and it is to serve them a permanent service. that will be an underground from my service pole that is within 3 feet of their property. And the customer is going to be installing a 2 3-inch conduits. Like I said, it will be 3 feet.
So this is an electrical,
Yes, sir.
underground electrical.
Yep.
What did you say the number was? 161?
No, 116 Willow Road in Nahant. Yep.
Mr. Chair, he should identify that person as the resident.
What was that, Dan?
He should identify that person if that's a resident in town, if he's representing them today at this hearing.
Looks like the Jenkins, I guess. Am I allowed to say
Yes.
that?
Jenkins.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Carl.
Hey. You know,
All right, so what's the next step of this hearing, Dan?
So if there's any opposition, Mr. Chairman, you could hear that now. Anyone in support of it, you could hear that also.
Well, I like the aesthetics of underground electrical service, so sounds like a good idea to me.
Me too. Is there anybody on that is in opposition to this?
Here's, I will, I just pulled up the petition. So I'll give a visual for those that are on the line. This is at the corner of Willow Road and Winter Street. And it, as he mentioned, it's because it enters the town sidewalk is I believe why we're conducting the public hearing.
So basically what this does is provide our National Grid an easement for that piece of equipment in our sidewalk. And as you said, Josh, I wish more things could be underground in terms of wires and as such. So I'm certainly in support of this petition.
Likewise.
So Dan, is it just open it up for anybody that's against and then open it up for anybody that's in support?
Yeah, that's right. I think we've already opened it up for folks in favor of, and some folks have spoken. So we give the same opportunities to folks who might oppose, and then we take a vote after that.
Okay, so the hearing is open. The hearing is open now for anyone who has an opinion, whether in support or in opposition. Just please state your name and address and your comment.
Josh Hantrum, 267 Nahant Road, and I support it.
Mark Cullen, 38 Ocean Street, in support.
Gene Canty, 2 Lafayette Terrace, in support.
Okay, I can make a motion, Mr. Chairman, if there's no one in the negative. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the petition submitted by National Grid to excavate the public highway and to run and maintain underground electric conduits together with such sustaining and protecting features as it may find necessary for the transmission of electricity. Said underground conduits to be located substantially in accordance with a plan filed herewith marked Willow Road, Nahant, Massachusetts, 01908, and authorize the town administrator to sign the petition.
Did we have to include the president's name on that?
I'm just reading the motion that was given to me.
Okay, I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen and
Josh Hantrum, aye. And
I move to close the National Grid public hearing.
Second,
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Hedram, aye. I'm just looking down this list here. Yeah, why don't we just stick to the order and make Lynn Spencer wait just a few minutes, because we can get through this pretty quickly, I think.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So new business, vote to award enterprise resource planning, financial software.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve Tyler Technologies to receive the bid award for the enterprise resource planning financial software bid and authorize the town administrator to sign one bid award contract.
Seconded.
Discussion. I think this is the Munis software that the town voted on, Tony.
Yes.
Yep.
So we Munis is the most well-known or most used financial software program in the Commonwealth. It's rated the highest as far as like reviews and user friendly software for municipalities. However, they're not on the state contract, so we had to put out an RFP if we wanted to potentially have them bid on this project or use them as a potential vendor, and they were the only one that responded to our RFP. So they came in under budget, and it is it'll be a long project, but with the awarding of this contract, we are, it's only uphill from here. It's going to be a great significant improvement to the operation of the town finances. So urge you to vote in support of awarding the contract.
Yeah,
Tony, did Allison use this in Marblehead?
I don't know if they have Munis in Marblehead.
I believe they did, Tony. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. As Tony said, it's Munis is the sort of the gold standard for municipal software. So,
Well, her
So
use.
I'm sure I'm a little jealous that Tony has it now. I never had it, but because I had to listen to the accountant complain about how shitty the other was that I got. So.
Well, I got 3 years. I had 3 years of that. But just so you know, the contract price that came in here is a one-time fee of $156,964, and then a reoccurring annual fee for software related services of $42,729. So originally we went to the town for the authority to borrow $300,000 to conduct this process. Some of that is for trainings. This is just the cost of the software, but then we will have to pay for trainings. We might have to bring in some help to actually implement the program. So, but we're still, based on this quote, projected to come in under budget of what we asked for borrowing authorization for. And as far as the reoccurring fee goes, we spend probably north of $42,000 currently on our annual reoccurring fee for our current software that is way worse than what Munis is. So while it's a big price up front, it's actually a savings and an improvement on the operations of the town. So it's a huge win for us.
So, I mean, a year ago, you convinced the board, or the board was convinced that this was a good investment, and FinCom recommended it at town meeting, and the town voters voted to approve the expenditure. So this is really just formalization of all those past approvals. So I would think we simply go ahead and do it.
And her use of this in Marblehead, if that is the case, would be a big plus. and probably add to the training part of this. Make it a lot easier for people.
Certainly.
All right,
Yes,
any
Tony
more
said.
discussion? No more discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Not coming on.
Chair my. The town hall and library envelope restoration RFP. Oh,
So before you motion on this one, we're actually going to postpone this vote.
yeah.
We still have a little bit more review on the contractors that submitted bids. So we're not quite prepared to award yet. We did get 3 bids. 2 of them are, the base bid is within the budget authorized by last year's CPC borrowing. But we are going through the process of vetting those contractors. So we're actually going to skip this for tonight.
Sounds good. Okay, the next one is vote to authorize Massachusetts Clean Water Trust loan.
I'm gonna need a glass of water to read this motion, I think.
Yeah, well,
I'll give it a shot here. I move that one, the town shall issue a bond or bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $7,600,000 pursuant to chapters 29C and 44 of the general laws and votes of the town passed September 26, 2020, Article 14, as validated by Chapter 45 of the Acts of 2021, which authorized a total borrowing of $4,600,000 in September 27, 2021, Article 1, which authorized a total borrowing of $3 million for the planning or construction of sewers and other water pollution control abatement infrastructures, i.e. the project. 2, that in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds, the treasurer is authorized to issue an interim loan note or notes from time to time in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $7,600,000. That each bond or note shall be issued as a single registered security and sold to the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, i.e. the trust, at a price determined pursuant to the financing agreement. 4, that the treasurer is authorized to determine the date, the form, the maximum interest rate, and the principal maturities of each bond and note, and to execute a financing agreement with the trust with respect to the sale of the bonds and notes, such date, form, and maturities, and the specific interest rate or rates of the bonds and notes to be approved by a majority of the Board of Selectmen and the treasurer, and evidence by the execution of the bonds or notes. 5, that any certificates or documents relating to each bond and note, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one in the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document. And electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters related thereto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. 6, that all actions taken to date by the town and its offices and agents to carry out the project and its financing, including the execution of any loan, commitment, or agreement by the treasurer, are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed. And 7, that the treasurer and the other appropriate town officials are each hereby authorized to take any and all necessary action, necessary or convenient to take any and all actions necessary or convenient to carry out the provisions of this vote, including execution and delivery of the financing agreement and the project regulatory agreement related to the project.
Tony, before I second it, is there anything that you wanted to add to this?
No, it was very well read.
Seconded.
I didn't catch all that, Mark. Can you read it again?
No.
Okay, so this is related to the borrowing for the sewer system. These funds have been approved at town meeting, but anyway, you want to provide some additional background, Tony?
It's the motion that comes along with the authority to borrow through SRF, which is a low interest loan program through the state that was, as you mentioned, authorized by the town through town meeting vote twice. So now that we are completing the project or in process of getting the project done, we are paying the contractor and need to submit invoices to the SRF program to be reimbursed. It kind of functions like a construction loan. So this authorization is required for us to, proceed with that. So.
Yep. So just a formalization of what's already been voted on at town meeting, and I'm glad you brought up the construction loan, because that means we sort of we don't use all that money necessarily. We pay the invoices as they come, and those are the upper limits on the loan. So again, just a formalization of what's already been passed at town meeting. That's all the discussion I had. I don't know if anybody else has anything else. All right. Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. All right, what's next?
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the appointment of Jim Dolan to the Community Preservation Committee.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion?
This is an at-large position. The Board of Selectmen, I believe, have 3 of those. This seat has been vacant, and Jim Dolan has been, looking to get involved with the community for a while. And, I have vetted this appointment with Lynn Spencer, and we're all excited to have him join the team.
So this is the Jim Dolan that's your age, not his father, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That was a great choice.
What if either one of them? Okay.
Anybody named Jim Dolan? That's great. It's always nice to have someone on the younger side get involved in town committees. So sounds great.
Good choice.
Any other discussion? Is Jim on the phone by any chance? I see a couple unidentifiable participants here, but
I don't think he's on.
okay. All right. Well, if there's no more discussion, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. Okay. I have a lot of windows open on my computer here. What's next? Hold on.
The swim request.
Oh yeah, the swim request for a beach cleanup. Do we have a motion on that?
Where are we here? Just put that away. I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for swim beach cleanup on Sunday, May 22nd, 2022, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? Well, thanks again to Swim for organizing another beach cleanup.
It says here, volunteers and participants should meet at the Lowlands parking lot and will then go to Doggy Beach and Short Beach to begin the cleanup.
Sounds great.
I'm sure we'll repeat that as we get closer to the date.
Yeah. Yeah, May 22nd seems like a long ways away, but yeah, I'd like to thank Swim for yet another beach cleanup. They do a great job with that.
For sure.
All right, roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye. We moving on to ongoing business. We've already had our joint meeting with the Housing Authority. So Lynn, it is your time to review the CPC articles that were approved at the 2021 annual town meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be hearing parts of this meeting because they relate to community preservation and the upcoming round of grant applications. So before I do my report on last year's appropriations, let me just remind listeners that the fiscal year 23 grant applications are available online on the town hall website. The applications are due January 28th. And
That's
I
coming right
believe,
up.
yep, it's coming right up. And I believe that we have received 2 or 3 applications so far. So more will come. We are indebted as a committee to Christine Taylor, who is actually serving as our point of contact, helping with administering the taking minutes, holding on to the grant applications, distributing them, and actually helping make sure that that website application is usable by users. In fact, I had an email from her today saying, oh, we're having a few more glitches with it. So we're trying to make that an easy, fillable document. So thanks to Kristen. But most importantly, and I'm sorry I missed the beginning of this meeting, but we as a committee are indebted deeply to Ellen Steves, who was an important member of our committee and whose passing this past weekend is mourned. She was really a committed, kind, generous, and a faithful attendee and a faithful commentator on our applications. So she will be very sorely missed. Well, all right, so to the matter at hand. Last year, we had a banner year of appropriations because we were combining 2 years of community preservation appropriations in one town meeting. And the town meeting approved over $757,000 worth of grant-funded projects in 3 areas: historic preservation, affordable housing or community housing, and open space and recreation. So, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to just go through the list, or how shall?
Yeah, I mean, if that's convenient for you, I'd just say, go through the list. I think you have 21 articles that were approved last town meeting, and if you just want to read them off and where we're at with each one, I don't think we need to spend a lot of detail on, unless there's some reason to spend a lot of detail.
Okay, so I just want to warn everyone, it starts with A and goes down to V. So get ready. Almost the whole alphabet.
Buckle your seatbelts.
Okay, so we did appropriate $10,000 for general administration. That is, this past week, we'll be paying for our Community Preservation Coalition dues, which are $1,750. We will also be assisting the town hall with some money to help with some planning related to a grant application coming up. because we said we can give small amounts of money to help plan and get the cost estimates for good applications. Next was we had appropriated $32,375 towards the Flash Road Little League fields. That has actually been matched by the Little League organization by $15,000. And that was for backstops and fencing, and that work has been completed. So both the match plus our appropriation has been spent. Next was the sign for the American Legion at the Life Saving Station, and everyone who has passed by has seen, yeah, that project's done. Very handsome sign was produced. Item D was the appropriation of $120,000, which is actually joining a previous appropriation of $160,000 for a total of $280,000 to replace the Flash Road basketball and tennis courts. That project is substantially complete. I think what we're waiting for now is good temperatures for the final painting applications. So that will be ready for basketball, tennis, and it's also been lined in for pickleball. So we know there are very enthusiastic pickleball players, and we expect them to be out there all the time. That court, by the way, does have lights. So, if you feel inclined at 3 o'clock in the morning to play pickleball, well, go at it.
I don't know if we're gonna allow the lights to go on.
Oh, come on, Tony.
Those pickleball people can get pretty rowdy.
Oh, okay. We'll be aware of that. Item E on my list is, in fact, with the appropriation of $500,000 in the form of a bond that is divided between the public library work, some work on town hall, and some work on the entry gate at Green Lawn Cemetery. So you've heard from Tony that the bids have been received on the library project, which also included alternates for town hall. And those are under review at this point. So the bond hasn't been taken, but the project is bid. And that, by the way, also was success. Sharon Hawks was successful in getting a Massachusetts Preservation Projects Fund grant to add to that pot. So there's another $50,000 that is going in there as well. Next on my list is, in fact, the second year of the bond for a previous $400,000 bond that was taken for the library. And that actually resulted in the structural repairs and the rebuilding on the terrace that wraps around two sides of that building. And that was accomplished in 2020. And that bond was taken. So this is the second year of that bond. $50,000 was appropriated for the Ellingwood Chapel. That project is pending. That is for that was specifically for some continuing work on flashing on the tower and then recoating the interior. The next item was a $17,000 that was appropriated for the Nahant Dory Club as part of the floating docks that they had installed there. They also had provided over $66,000 towards that project, which has been accomplished. $45,000 was appropriated for the housing work. You heard from Kelly earlier that the work on the Spring Road property is complete. So that succeeded. The next one was $155,000 for the Greystone road property, and that is under design right now. So that's pending for implementation. $41,000 was appropriated under the open space category for Bailey's Hill for the beginning of the removal of invasive species and some trail restoration, mainly on the easterly side of Bailey's Hill. That is under that has the involvement of the Open Space Committee. And I think that there will be probably another grant coming in for fiscal year 23 for additional planning work as a master plan for Bailey's Hill. $27,000 was appropriated for the lowland softball fields for various work related to backstops and pathways, and that has been, Tony, help me, I believe that's completed. Yeah,
That's complete.
Yeah.
We still have, I think we have a little bit of funding left over to put a fresh layer of clay down in the spring, but all of the major work is completed.
yeah, that's great. $165,000 was appropriated for handicapped access work at Town Hall. This was following a study that had been accomplished 2 years before, which identified a number of deficiencies in handicapped access, including the exterior ramp to the building, hardware, and other things. So there's going to be a range of activities related to handicapped access improvements, which is very important for us. We want everyone to be able to use Town Hall. But that project is now pending.
I think once we, now that the same engineer that was working on the library town hall bid is going to be working on this one. So
Oh, good. So
priority
that's
priority was to get that bid out, and once we kind of close that chapter, we can start working on the bid docs for this project.
That's great. $24,000 was appropriated for the Little Nahant playground, and that's pending. Tony has spoken about, arranging convening meetings with neighbors and users to actually make sure that it is designed in such a way that meets, the broadest needs and expectations.
That meeting is coming up. Actually tonight, our contractor for the Short Beach Dune close to Little Nahant is in front of the Concom submitting their NOI. And so our goal was, once that goes through Concom, we were going to have a neighborhood meeting to brief them on that project and also talk to them about the playground equipment and get that ordered for a spring install.
That's good. Let's see, we have $12,000 that was appropriated for the Spring Road basketball court, and that is complete.
Yes, it is.
And then we had a number of little sort of articles that sort of pulled back monies that had not been spent. So there were clawbacks. The last article was the appropriation for the East Point bond for as part of the whole eminent domain. And of course, that is pending as well. So that is my report on the articles from last year that were appropriated. We do have one or two, we've got a small group of previous articles that still have balances in their accounts. And notably, one of them is the grant that was given to the Council on Aging for the kitchen renovation at Town Hall. And I think we have had several conversations with them as to whether that project actually is going to be proceeding in the way it was envisioned. And I believe that that has been substantially abridged. And it's likely that that $50,000 will be pulled back into the fund. That's not official, but that seems to be the way that that is going. So in terms of the fiscal year 23, we have a very strong match capability that has been demonstrated by the state funding. In the past, we've been seeing state matches of around 60, between 60 and as much as 70% of our real estate tax surcharge. That tax surcharge is around $230,000. You know, last year we had like a 69.4% match. It is very likely that we'll be above that this year in the match coming from the state, which means potentially, you know, instead of having around $370,000 to look at for grant making, we could be closer to $400,000. And we also carry quite healthy reserves in the general reserve. We've got about $266,000 in that account, and $202,000 is in the housing category. So as we think about, you know, the housing production study and all of that, we certainly have a capability of participating with community preservation money, not only out of the annual 10% minimum from our fund, but out of the housing reserve that has been accumulated. So that's my report.
Great report, thank you.
Yeah, that was great. You know, I'm so happy that Nahant joined this Community Preservation Act way back in 2004. Yeah. These monies, as many people know, are separate from the general fund. So, you know, I view them as quality of life programs that keep our historical buildings in good shape, and our public housing in good shape, and recreation. So it really makes the town a special place, and it's great that we're able to leverage that state match. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add, I think, Lynn, you know, I don't want to talk about how long we've been around. I believe you were on the original, you started in 2004, right? So
yes,
you're one of the longest serving committee members in probably town history.
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that at all.
Well, you're getting up there.
Yeah, I could possibly be, but yes, I am privileged to be on this committee, and I actually appreciate it.
Yeah, we're lucky to have you. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Jean. It's good to hear you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is preserving East Point, and Jeff Blake already gave us a rundown of the legal status. I don't know, I don't have anything to add to that. I don't know, Jean or Mark, if anything else you want to add?
No, I'm glad I've got Jeff to come in and give us a summary, because I don't think any one of us could have done justice to that. So
a lot to understand, and it's even more to articulate. So he did a great job.
Yeah, he was good. Thank you.
All right, town administrator's report, the highlight of the meeting.
Yeah, best for last. I'll try to be quick, but stop me if you have any questions about any of these topics. Obviously, we are in the process of building the budget. We are meeting with our department heads, Allison and I. We're going, basically every other Wednesday. It's a Board of Selectmen meeting, or it's a FinCom meeting, and then sprinkle that in with CPC meetings too. So we're also working on, getting our CPC applications prepared, for next week's deadline. But I am happy to report that we have been, we applied for a cybersecurity training grant. We were awarded that. So we are going through the process where all of our employees will participate in essentially 4 hours over a year of training. online training, how to identify cyber scams and phishing and different things like that. So happy to report that we're moving forward with that. As I mentioned in the last segment, our Short Beach NOI is in front of the Concom tonight. Hopefully Trey from Applied Coastal is successful there, and we can, move forward on that project. Essentially, the design that's in front of the Concom for permitting extends from Little Nahant to the life-saving station. Currently, we only have funding from 2018's damage funds from the 2018 storm, which really is focusing on the portion of the dune that was lost due to that storm, which is adjacent to the playground. So while we're going for a larger permit in case we come into some funding, we're only going to have enough money to just do that portion, but it's very much needed. And as I mentioned, we'll be doing a neighborhood meeting once the NOI is approved.
Hey, Tony, on that subject, if I could, there was an article in the item today on Swampscott's dredging their harbor. And looking at that and thinking about it, more likely they'll use it for their own beaches, whatever they dredge up, because that's perfect sand for the consistency we're looking for. But if they're not, it might be a good idea for us for you to make a call to your counterpart over there and see if they want to release some of that, and we could take it and use it.
Certainly. I read the article too. I think they're still kind of in the master plan phase. It's still a ways away, but whenever, if that ever comes to fruition and we have the opportunity to get our hands on some of that compatible sand, we should definitely take advantage of that.
Perfect.
The last time Swampscott Harbor was dredged, I think I was the project engineer when I was working for the state, was back in the mid 1980s. And I believe the method we used, we pumped the sand onto the beach. And we had a nightmare because of all of the lost moorings that were there, and the pumps were getting, it was a nightmare. So you might get a lot of sand, but you might get a lot of old moorings and stuff too.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea.
Marie,
I'm not sure how
Joe Marie has already gotten all the moorings.
But that's a good idea. They might be barging it out. Typically what they do is some communities pump it, but more than likely they dredge it. They'd have to do some testing of the sand first to make sure there's no contaminants in it. If there's not, then there's a dumping site about 1.5 miles or so offshore that they bring it out and dump it. But if we could use it, you might give them a call.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So this project, as I mentioned, is funded through FEMA from damage money that came with the storm of 2018. So it can really only be spent to restore what existed prior to that storm. Meanwhile, we have an application into BRIC regarding the, increasing the height of the entire dune from Little Nahant all the way to, the cemetery side of Short Beach. So, it's looking good. We've had a ton of calls with MEMA and CZM regarding that application, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. So I don't want to, count it before it occurs, but it seems like we're heading in the right direction there, and we're applying for, north of $1 million for that project. So hopefully we get, we're successful on that. We also signed the contract. I don't know if you remember, we got through the state senator Crichton and Representative Capano, we received a $50,000 grant or earmark through last year's budget for telecommunication improvements in the town. And what we're using that money, we just signed the contract with the state A&F to actually receive those funds. We're using that money to connect all of our municipal buildings with fiber cable, which will allow us to our server. It improves our cybersecurity, and it also allows us to, if the town hall purchases, let's say, the internet through Verizon or Comcast, we can then share that to our other buildings under that one account instead of, each building having its own account. So there's a ton of efficiency upgrades that come with that project. It also filters into the police radio project that was approved at last year's town meeting. So it's kind of an initial step. So we're looking hopefully to get that project. Now that we've signed the contract with the state for the funds, we can start issuing, a notice to proceed with the contractor to get that wire installed. Assessment of the Ward Road pump station is somewhat complete. There's still a couple more electrical engineers to come in and take a look at the building, but we've asked Wright Pierce under our existing contract to provide us an assessment of the pump station at Ward Road, and they were out there last week. They've actually produced a 3D survey of the building, similar to if you were to take a virtual tour of a house that's on the market on like realtor.com. They've produced a similar file for us regarding the pump station, which engineers can use that to measure and determine, what type of costs are associated with upgrades or fixes. So really good work that's being done there, and going to be very helpful in our long-term capital planning. So that's underway. Our LED conversion project for interior lighting is underway. Phase 1 at the school is complete. I think they finished up with the town hall this week, and then they're going to the police station and the fire station, DPW, library, and they're converting our lights into efficient LED efficient light bulbs. So that's going to produce a significant amount of savings for the town instantly, all through the Green Communities grant. So at no cost for the town. So that's really positive that project is almost completed. And then lastly, Stantec, I don't know, you may have seen them around town. They are underway conducting the sign audit and sidewalk audit. Unfortunately, the quote, the contract that we have put forward with them was for the assessment side, a sign inventory and assessment was for 475 signs. That was our estimate of how many signs are street signs are in the town, not like street names, but as far as like parking or speed limit, one way, dead end, that type of thing. Our estimate was 475 signs. They have completed Little Nahant and gotten a little bit into the lowlands area and have already hit 475 signs. Wow. So there's way more signs than we estimated. So they've come back to me and said, for us to continue, it's going to come at an extra cost at about $18 per sign. They estimate about 1,000 signs, which would mean almost about an extra $10,000 to the cost of this study. So it's a significant increase, but we're using Chapter 90 funds. If there's any year to utilize Chapter 90 funds, it's now, because we essentially didn't get any paving done last year. So we still have last year's allocation. We're going to have next year's this summer. So I think it's worth it, and probably going to, unless I hear any opposition from you, I think it's worth it to authorize them to continue on and conduct the full assessment of the town.
Are they suggesting sign removals?
Yeah, everything from the first part of the assessment is literally going out and taking pictures of signs, grading them as far as what do they say, where are they located, what is the condition of the pole that they are on, are they visible, what material are they made of, and they're putting all that information on a GIS layer. So, which is it's like the key to, for our police station to enforce those, tickets. When we get an appeal for a ticket that we write, we can just pull up that information. Then once they complete that, they're going to say, you don't need this many signs over here, or you need a sign over here. They're going to provide those recommendations to us. They're going to give us a capital plan. And then they will, as we complete those objectives, they will update that GIS layer. So,
Perfect.
Sounds great. I'm sure the signs will all sort of match and, and have the same fonts and the same colors, and yeah, that'd be great.
and they remembered you, Mark, from the sidewalk study that you did as town administrator. They still had a lot of that information in their system.
Yeah, they're good. They know their traffic pretty well.
Yeah.
What's the current contract number value amount?
For the sign audit, it's 14.7. So that would increase to 24 grand, basically, or 25 grand. For the sidewalk and ramp condition assessment, that's 12,600. So the current scope is 27,300 for both projects, which is a good deal for the amount of work that's being put into this. But now it's another 10,000 because we have so many signs. I mean, it's tough because it's also alarming that we have that many signs in Little Nahant and just in the lowlands area, and you don't want to, now's the time to do it. We have them out here. We have, another $10,000 from Chapter 90 compared to if you spent that on paving. I think it's worth it to get the study done.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to spend more money, but as you know, Tony, one of my pet projects or pet interests is the signage in town. So
yeah,
I agree, Josh. Who was that? Owl got what was that song? Signs everywhere, signs.
Yeah.
Do this, don't do that, something like that.
Yeah, and hopefully Trey made out well with Concom today. I know a lot of people are excited to see some restoration of that dune. So.
Oh, I just got a text from Trey. It says it was approved by Concom. So good news there.
Great news.
Okay, so that's my report.
All right, and we skipped around a little bit, but I think we got to everything except for citizens forum, right? So with that, citizens forums next.
Hey, I've just got one question before we get into that. Tony, are we going to be meeting with the planning board and Concom the next meeting?
I haven't sent out an invite yet, but that's the plan. Would be our next meeting is
second, I think.
February 2nd. So I'll send an invite out to both committees tomorrow or the next day.
Great, thanks.
All right, so citizens forum, if anybody has any questions or comments, they can unmute themselves or type a question into the chat if you're on Zoom. Anything in the chat, Tony?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. All right, going once. Going twice. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjournment.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Gene Canty, aye.
come on, line.
Josh Antrim, aye. Thank you, everyone, and talk to you on February 2nd.